45-degree angle at the beginning end of our binding, okay? So this is the wrong side of the binding. The right side I have down away from me. And what I'm going to do, I am going to make a 45-degree cut right here like this, okay? So I'm going to use the 45-degree line on my ruler, and I want that to go 45 degree. I have lined up right along the edge of my fabric. This is the wrong side of the fabric facing me, and all I'm going to do is make a 45-degree cut right there like that. Now when I get to the ironing board, I will fold this over 1/4 inch and press it. And I'll show you why that's important just a little later on. And just remember, after you've sewn all your strips together, you're going to put the strip on your cutting mat, right side of the fabric away from you so it's down, wrong side of the fabric facing you, and do a 45-degree cut angle to angle. When you fold it over later, because we're going to do a double fold binding, it'll look kind of like that. See there? That's what we want. Okay, so now we're going to get started pressing our binding. Remember, this is the wrong side. We made our cut earlier, 45 degrees. This is the corner right here, 45-degree angle. And here's what we're going to do next. Wrong side facing up. We're going to take our iron, give it a little press. Okay. Then we're going to turn this over about 1/4 inch. Give that a good press. Right there. I'm going to hold it down. I want a good crisp edge there. Okay, there we go. Can you see that? That's what we're after. Right there. And now we're going to fold it in half lengthwise and iron the entire length. This is where the double fold, the term double fold binding, that's what this means. We're going to fold it in half right like that. Hit that again. And then we're just going to press it. Really nice. Good heat. Now we're just going to press the entire length of all of this binding. Okay, that's all there is to it. So, I start with the wrong side facing up, and you can tell if I fold this back, you'll see there's that seam right there. So we want that folded over like this. Okay. Now I'm not going to talk anymore. I am just going to get this all pressed and ironed so it's nice and neat. Lovely straight of grain binding. I'll have a future video that shows you how to cut these strips. These are 2.5 inch strips. Okay. I'm just going to work my way down the entire length of all these strips that I sewed together earlier. We are going to select this little icon right here. We're going to tap it. Okay, it starts out in the center position, But I want to use that as an edge guide for the edge of my quilt sandwich. So I want to move it over to the right by pressing the plus arrow. I want it to line up on the 1/4 inch mark. It says 9.5 millimeters. Check this out. Right there, I've moved it over to that. Let's try one more notch. A little too much. Right back down. Now that is just going to be a visual guide. It's like a seam guide now. So I'm lining up the edge of my fabric I'm going to sew with the edge of this, and my needle drop will be a 1/4 inch in from the edge of the quilt sandwich. So we're going to get started, and we are going to sew our double fold binding strip down to the quilt. So the first thing we're going to do, though, we are going to sew it to the back of the quilt and not the front. We've already taken the time to trim our edges evenly. Okay, back, front. We don't want to sew our binding to the front. We're going to sew it to the back of the quilt and then later flip the edge to the front. So I'm going to turn the quilt over. I'm going to start attaching about in the middle of the long row. Let's see here. Thread off of there. There we go. Okay. And I've got my digital dual feed set up with the 1/4 inch edge guide on it. I have my laser light seam guide set to a 1/4 inch. It falls right on that 1/4 inch mark. Let me zoom in so you can see that. Right there. 1/4 inch laser light. And we are going to set this up right to the edge. We'll lower the foot. Okay. Then I'm going to take the edge of my binding. And remember that 45-degree angle we cut in the beginning? Well, that's what we're going to start with. You can see it right there. So when we cut that, before we went and pressed it, we cut it off right like that. Now we're going to fold it over. And there's your folded edge right here. So we're going to open it up to begin with and sew down the beginning of this binding. I'm going to line up that raw edge right to the edge of the quilt sandwich. Get it up underneath the needle. Lower the foot. We're going to sew for about 4 or 5 inches. Get the edges lined up right to the edge. There we go. Get it under there, lower. And now we're going to stitch. Okay. I always like to stop with the needle in the down position. That way, as I reposition, everything stays in place. We're going to sew it down just a little bit further. You can see that laser light. Just line it right up to the edge. So it just catches the edge of it. I'm going to sew it down to about right here where my finger's at. Okay, I'm going to break my thread, cut it. And now I'm going to go ahead and fold over this binding, but I want to start just above where I just stopped at. It's right where my finger's at. And we're going to be sewing through all the thicknesses now. We're going to go all the way around the edge of the quilt this way, sewing it to the back. And just take your time, enjoy the process. It's not a race. Okay. just going to sew it down now until I get to that first corner. I'll show you what's so important, how you attach the corners. It's all in how you fold the binding as you sew it down. That's how you achieve perfect mitered corners in the binding. I'm letting the machine do all the work. I'm not pushing or pulling the fabric through. I'm just guiding it. My finger touches the edge of that presser foot. I stop, take my foot off the foot pedal, reposition, and sew another 6 inches or so. Okay, so we're coming to our first corner. There it is right there. You can see that. What we want to do, we want to stop about a quarter inch before we get to the edge. Okay, so I am going, if you have a straight pin, a stiletto, whatever you want to use, and just kind of use it as a visual marker. I want to stop about where the point of my scissors are right there. Okay, and we're just going to sew it down to that edge. I'm going to slow up here so I can stop the point right where the needle is. I'm just going to back it up a couple of stitches and cut my thread. Now, here's the magic in the folding of the corners. Okay, I'm going to zoom out just a hair. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, we want to take our binding and we want to fold it up and make a 45-degree angle going from the corner to towards the center of the quilt. Okay, there like that. And what we're going to do is, how you can tell you've got the right amount, the edge of the binding should line up with the edge of the quilt around the corner that we're going to turn and start sewing to. You can see that, how that's all nice and lined up. Okay, so finger press that 45-degree fold. Then we're going to fold it back over and onto the edge we're going to start sewing on. Okay. There like that. Okay, and I'm just going to hold my fingers right there like that and swing it around so it goes under the foot, up against the edge guide, and drop my presser foot. Okay, take a couple of stitches, and I'm going to reposition my quilt. Sure that's nice and flat, and it is. And we're ready to do the other side of the quilt now. Just reposition and sew. Reposition and sew. close to corner number 2. And just like before, we're going to take our little markers, stiletto, scissors, straight pin, whatever. I just don't want to go past the tip of my scissors as I come down this edge to the corner. Back it up a couple of stitches and cut my thread. And once again, we're going to bring our binding, bring it over to the side, and line up the raw edge of the binding to the raw edge of the quilt so it makes a straight line. That creates a 45-degree angle from the corner towards the center of the quilt. And I'm going to finger press, and then I'm going to fold it back like so. Make sure it's nice and neat. I'm going to pivot it around, get it right under the foot, right there. Take a couple of stitches. Needle stays in the down position. Reposition my quilt. And we're going to sew down to the other edge. Easy peasy. Line it up, pinch it, give it some gaps. Finger touches the edge of the presser foot, pull it away, stop, pull it away, and repeat. And remember, I am not pulling on it or pushing on it, I am just guiding the fabric. The machine is doing all the work. And we're approaching corner number 3. Woohoo! Okay. Get up a little closer. And use this as a guide to where I want to stop stitching before I turn the corner. Back a couple of stitches and cut the thread. Okay, so we're going to fold this over, forming a straight line from the raw edge down the side of the new quilt, of the new part of the quilt we're going to stitch down. Finger press that 45-degree angle right there for a fold. Okay. We're going to fold it back over. Just line that fold up with the edge of the quilt that we just stitched down. Okay. Hold your fingers there, pivot it. Bring it under the foot. Lower the foot. Take a few stitches. And I'm going to reposition the quilt. And sew down the side of this quilt. This side of the quilt. Okay? This is such an easy way to attach binding on. And when you see the finished result, I hope you'll be impressed. I hope you use this technique for all your quilt bindings. And we're approaching corner number 4. Okay, so I'm going to lay down my marker where I want my seam to stop. There comes the corner. I'm going to back up a couple of stitches. Cut my thread. We're going to fold open our binding to line up the raw edge of the binding, the raw edge of the next line of the quilt we're going to sew down. That automatically will make that 45-degree angle for the mitered corners on the binding. We're going to fold it back over, line that fold line up with the edge of the quilt side that we just sewed down. Lay it down like this, and we're going to pivot. Put it right up underneath the needle, lower our foot, and start sewing. Okay, let's reposition the quilt. And off we go. Now we're approaching the area where we started. And remember that 45-degree angle? You're about to see some binding magic. Let's get rid of some of those loose threads. I'm going to cut off that dog ear on the binding. It's from where I pressed the seam open. I'm going to sew right up to, let me come down a little further. Okay, now here's where we started. See, I have this, left this flap open. So we are going to fit our binding tail into that flap, and we are going to cut it off so it stays inside that flap. Okay, so line that up. I'm going to cut it up at an angle. You just have to cut it so that that fold where it wraps around the binding, you're down below the corner of that so it hides it. Okay? I'm going to cut that at an angle. Okay, approximately a 45-degree angle. Okay. I'll come down a little bit further before I actually tuck it inside. Okay. Now we're just going to tuck that on the inside, keeping all the raw edges to the center, to the edge of the quilt. Nice and smooth. Now we're just going to stitch over that join. Okay? Check this out. This is what I call binding magic right here. And I want to make sure that fold is down as it goes under the foot. That's why I stopped and raised it, just to make sure. I'm going to go slow. I'm going to reposition it here. I'm just going to sew past where we started. Back it up a couple. Cut it. And we have attached our binding to the back of the quilt. Okay. So when I turn this over, right here is the fold that we tucked it down into. That is solid now. When we turn it over, it looks like we've mitered it, but we haven't. Super fun, super easy, super fast. So check that out right there. I'm going to zoom in, out a little bit. And right there is that fold slip where I just tucked that down into.